Welcome to Fly on the Wall podcast. I'm your host, Chris Sonksen, CEO and founder of Church Boom. Here you get to sit in on a live coaching session as I coach pastors through the ministry challenges we all face. If you find this podcast helpful, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Hey, today I'm with my very good friend, Jason Hanish, who's got an incredibly fast-growing church in Bakersfield, California, and we are talking about staff culture. How do we make sure that culture doesn't get lost in the staff as the church continues to grow? Is there practical things we can do to keep culture aligned with everybody on the team? It is an incredible coaching conversation. Let's jump into it.
I'm glad to be on here, Chris.
Man, it's an honor to have you on. Are you kidding?
You've been such a blessing to Discovery Church and to my life and the coaching that we've received to help us to get to where we're at. And even these next levels that I believe God's taken us into. Appreciate you, man. So I got a few thoughts that I was thinking about here. First, we're adding more staff, and we're adding more staff to our team. And because of our growth, we're adding multiple layers. It seems like they come in waves. Growth comes in waves, and we've grown by like 26%, and then almost 30% this year, 20-something% last year. And so there are new waves coming in. And I'm wondering, how could we best maintain and influence the staff culture as we're bringing on and we intentionally, we'll call them green. Some are a little bit more experienced, but we like to have a healthy balance of green, younger generation employees that are staff. So how can we maintain and influence our culture, our staff culture, when we're bringing on waves of new people onto the team?
That's a great question, because there, I think, Jason, there's a culture guard that needs to be aware, because the faster you grow and the more team you bring on, it's difficult to maintain that. You've heard me say before, culture is created at the top, supported at the bottom, but always lost in the middle.
Yeah,
that's where it gets lost. So culture is created at the top. Jason, Veronica. It's supported at the bottom. It really is, because there's people at the bottom that are just like, we love this church. They may not get all of that, but they love the church. But somewhere in the middle, in that staff, is where it can get lost really fast in a fast-growing organization. Wow. And so, one, you got to realize that you're going to have that's always a tension that you're going to have to manage. A couple things that I think also are important to know is that culture falls always into 4 categories. And the higher the category, the better. So there's know, embrace, defend, and multiply. Know, embrace, defend, and multiply. So what happens is, the more it drops down into the middle, right now, you're the pastor, you and your wife, you multiply it and you defend it. You probably multiply it. Okay. And then you move down to your next level, they're probably defending it. Then you go down to the next level and they embrace. And we're just talking about the staff. We're not talking about the church. We're talking about the staff. So they embrace it, but I don't know if they're multiplying it or defending it. And that's where I think you're obviously asking the question of being aware of that. I think you have to figure out practical ways. How do we make sure that what we're doing in our staff and what we're doing with all staff, collective, are the stories matching the culture? We know the invite culture, stories you tell, here's to make things you celebrate. You and I've talked about that a million times. Well, wouldn't that be true to the same for staff culture? Is Absolutely. Stories we tell, the here's make and things we celebrate. So it's going to be about that story. The other thing that I think becomes important, I think that in a larger organization, there needs to be assigned mentors. Larger organization need assigned mentors. So, for instance, maybe you take Joe, whoever, and you're like, man, this guy, he knows us. He's at least at the defend level. Okay.
Yeah.
He knows our culture. We've identified it through this is who we are. This is what we believe. This is what we're all about. This is what we don't say. This is what we do say. Sort of that culture page that everybody agrees upon. I'll call it a culture page. So 3 new staff get hired. and you say, Joe, your job is to mentor them for the next 6 months. You're going to meet with them once a week, once every other week. You're going to talk to them as a group, as culture. You're going to correct them when you see something wrong that doesn't match our culture. For the next 6 months, you are the culture developer for these 3 staff. So what I would do is, as you're bringing on these, you said waves. So, okay, let's say 5 people get hired in a period of 60 days. Okay, but who's mentoring them? Who's the assigned mentor to make sure that I think a few things. One, they get the culture, the nuances, the sort of do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
How do I ask for budget money? How do I not ask for money? Like some more practical things as well. Who do they go to? Not their boss, their culture developer. Culture not just being, hey, we're all about the loss, or we care about, teamwork, that kind of stuff. But just, okay, but how do I get money? How do I fill this out? What do I do for time off?
Yeah.
All those. So it's both sides of it. So a person doesn't come on the team in 3 months going, love being on the team, feel a little lost, don't want to admit it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's what I would do.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. I would have assigned mentors. And
okay.
I wouldn't let anybody come on the team without at the size you're at, with the pace you're growing, I would not let a person come on the team without an assigned mentor.
You mentioned a culture page too. And I wonder, we do have like staff values. We have values for like the members. We got values for the team. We have values for the leadership, and then we have values for staff. And we kind of scale the values of the higher you go, the more responsibilities you pick up, rights you give up. And so there's just a deeper level of commitment at every level. So we kind of identify like what are the values as people kind of step a little bit further into leadership. And so what would a good culture page look like if it could all fit on one page? I know I listed like 16 values right now, but if they could all just fit on one page, what would you say would go on a culture page?
We have 195 values. Memorize them.
This is what we do.
Wow, there's a lot. Learn it. You got a week. That's awesome. That is so awesome.
We have specifically, Chris, we have 4 values at every stage.
Yeah.
4 for members, the member values, 4 for a team, 4 for leadership, and then 4 for staff.
Yep. Here's a couple things that I think need to happen. One, I think you need to separate core and aspirational values and make sure that both of those are living on the page.
Okay.
Core values are the things you are no matter what. You cannot not be them. There's usually only 3 or 4. It's not like you need 20. And those values are not defined, they're discovered. It's different. You're not saying, let's think, what's a value? What's a value? No. They're not. You don't define them. You discover them. Like, what is the core value of this team no matter what? Like, we cannot not be that. Like you and I love clowning around. We get around 3 or 4 other guys. We clown around. People are like, Chris, Jason, couple like they start laughing about everything. Like, no one's surprised by that. We just love hanging out and laughing. No one's surprised that we like to have fun. No one's surprised about that. Okay.
Right.
What is the thing like? Yeah, nobody's surprised about that. Like, that's a core value. It's who you are no matter what. It's not what you're trying to be. It's who you are no matter what. That's a core value. What's your top 4 or 5 core values? Like, who you are no matter what. Like, dude, I think you are strong work ethic. Laziness drives you nuts. I just know this about you. I've known you a long time. And laziness drives you insane. Being bored drives you insane. You want to have fun when you're doing something. If we're not having fun doing it, why are we doing it? Those are a couple things like, yeah, that's him. And if you are not that's going to be difficult for you for the future, which, i.e., also serves as a way of who you should hire and not hire because they're not going to fit. So now you've got core values. Now you have aspirational values. We have teamwork. We have a great attitude. We put Christ first. We put, whatever your core values are, or your aspirational values. But when you say we've got, we put Christ first, and God's will always reigns, and, and we're team, and I don't know if everybody does that. We're all fighting to be that. So that's more aspirational values. It's what you want your team to become. core values is who your team is no matter what. And that mainly comes from you and Veronica.
Yeah.
It's who you are no matter what. And
That's so good.
does that help?
That's going to
You
give a
see the
lot of
difference?
clarity. I absolutely does. And it's going to give a lot of clarity. I love how you said that is who you hire now, because it's going to be a huge conflict if we hire people that are not who we are no matter what. And there's going to be a lot of missed expectations. So I can see already how maybe we blended core and aspirational a little bit, and separating intentionally who we are no matter what to who we are striving to be together, how that would already clarify our culture a lot and help us make some good staffing decisions.
It is a huge staffing thing because, and funny as it may sound, when I had a mentor interview 7-8 years ago, interviewed a bunch of people on our team. You know, one of the core values came back was sarcasm and humor.
We are a sarcastic bunch here, and if you don't like getting cut a little bit, you're not going to like it here. We're going to cut you. Wow. It's my kind of team.
And here's the funny thing. So this, I have a couple coaches in my life. I've had them for years. And so this coach of mine, he's like, yeah, one of them is, outreach minded. One of them is you like taking risk. I'm like, no one's surprised by that. You love leadership. I'm like, no one's surprised by that. And he goes, and sarcasm and humor. And I literally, Jason, questioned him. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I go, that can't be a value. He goes, it's not a value. He goes, you're missing the point. Wow. It's who you are no matter what. Call it a core essence, whatever you want to call it. It's who you are no matter what. Then, bro, he nailed me, because this is what he does. He goes, I go, what are you talking about? He goes, all right, think of the last guy that you personally had to let go. Not someone in the organization below you that had to let go of someone. You had to let go of that person. Bro, no joke. Jason, this is exactly how it goes. I go, okay, I got the guy in mind. And then he goes, okay, what was the problem? I go, dude, the guy can't even take a joke. And he goes, he can't take a what?
Yeah.
And I
go, wow.
Nailed me, dude. I was like, he goes, do you see what I'm saying? He goes, he's not going to fit. And that's why the core value is so important in your hiring process. It's who you are no matter what. It's the gateway to being on staff at Discovery Church. If it was, man, having fun, cutting up, again, there are the other things in there, like leadership, church growth, all the stuff that is who you are. But there are things that just who you are. Like, and if you're not that and you get easily offended, like, why would you hire someone on your team like that? It's just the clock's going to start ticking the minute they start on the team. Yeah. So on that, back to that document, I would have the core essence of who you are. I'd have your staff values, the values of like what aspirational, I call them aspirational, what you're trying to be. You might even consider a small language guide. We say this, not this. We say this, not this. We say this, not this. Kind of like just so they understand like what we're going after. That mentor is going to have that, review that for 6 months with these people, and then give them practical things of how do I get time off and how do I do all this, like the practical stuff so they know where to ask questions. But man, in your organization, no question, I would have an assigned mentor to new staff.
That's great.
That's
gonna be huge, man. It is. That's going to be huge. And I think my second question is still culture aligned, because I can see how as we've never hired outside of our church. We've always developed from within and hired within. But so we have a very the culture is strong. We all know Discovery and the vision of Discovery, but there is a lot of family relational ties and a lot of love and care. There is a lot of candor. But I think that we've lacked accountability historically as a staff. So I'm wondering with where we're at right now, like what's the best way to reestablish or to establish accountability when our team kind of hasn't really had it? How do we introduce or come back to the standard of accountability?
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. And that's back to that thing you and I talked about. By accident, we start choosing friendship over leadership. We don't mean to, and I don't think we'll ever admit that we do, but we unintentionally arrive there where it's like, we're actually allowing the friendship to win over what is right in the realm of
Yeah.
leadership and stewardship with the staff members, because they're all getting paid through kingdom dollars. That's part of stewardship. We got to steward that well.
Yeah.
So I think with the excuse me, I think with the with people, one thing is I think the introduction of accountability, when you're making an about face. I remember when we made an about face about the Matthew 18. You know that whole thing, the Matthew 18
Yeah.
moment,
Yeah.
all that. It lives on all the documents. But I remember when we made it about face, I didn't ease into the water. I just said, going on, here's the way it's going to be. It's going to live on every document. We're no longer going to be this way. That's it. I owned it. Now, that was an important part. I, as a leader, owned it. I created this. You know, in the first 5 years, when you're church planning, you're like, everything is like, you know, well, I had to get this. I had to inherit this. I had to hire this person. I didn't have no money. I didn't have this. I didn't have this. When you get in your 10th year and beyond, it's like, no, whatever you have is on us as leaders. We got to own that. So when I owned it, Jason, and said, Matthew 18, I've not done good at this. It changes today. Here's how we're going to fix it. Accountability. Now I'm pretending I'm Jason. I own it. This is the way it is, the way it's been. It's not going to be that way. Here's how we're going to fix it. And we're going to start doing it differently. And now all of a sudden we start moving down, because you're should only have 3 or 4 people answering to you at this point, or 5 people, something like that. On the way down, it's like, okay, but now what is the system by which we're going to hold them accountable? What's the system by which we're going to move people through to get better and stronger in their ministries? I personally, maybe others would disagree with me. I pulled the Band-Aid on the Matthew 18. I was like, I blew it. I'm not doing this anymore. We're fixing it. I wouldn't ease into it. I would just say, hey, man, I got to own this. I'm the lead pastor, but moving forward, it's changing today.
Yeah.
And
what do you feel like what do you feel like is a good system of accountability? If I were to, we're going to pull the Band-Aid. Hey guys, we're no longer going to be this way. Deadlines are hard. They're not soft. We're not going to have a culture of just not communicating and allowing things to go past our deadlines without any kind of expectation or communication. This is stopping. So what is this? What is a good system of accountability to kind of create the expectation? So, okay, the deadline's there, but do you know what I'm saying? What is a good system then of accountability?
Yeah, you need a system, because message is inspired, but systems change behavior. So you gotta have the system that's changing the behavior. So you have the honest talk, and then you get down to that. Now, two things come to mind. One is lines of authority, and the other one is a system. There's got to be a point of accountability. Like who's the person that they answer to? Who's their direct report? Those people need to be prepared, because if it's kind of like, hey, you got one person over 19 people, well, I don't know how that's going to work out. That's probably not going to work out well. That's just too many people. But one to one, you got to have a point of communication and a point of accountability. Who is that person? Is that clear? I'm not saying it's not. You just need to ask the question, is it clear? Secondly,
it's pretty clear.
Yeah. Okay, good. If it's clear. The second thing is you take the direct reports. I think let them lean in on it, but come in with a suggestion. I have become a raving fan over the last probably the last year and a half, of the 12-week year. I love it. I live by it. I live by it personally. I think it's awesome. I think it creates goal setting, and it creates accountability and regularity to the meetings. So I love that. I'm a big fan of it. And because you set out a whole year, you break it up into four 12 weeks, and then you're just holding them accountable. Like, okay, how are we doing on this? How are we doing on this? Did we hit that? Did we hit that? No, I'm not talking about like deadlines of, you come out of a staff meeting and you've got some event coming up and someone needs to make sure that they get it done. I do think those things need to be held accountable. But I think when you start living in a 12-week year, the behavior will start bleeding over into the, hey, it's Tuesday, we're having a staff meeting, I need this done by Friday, and then they don't do it. That doesn't live in a 12-week year. But that's a behavioral issue that can get corrected in the 12-week year format. And move their ministry forward. Like, how big do you want your ministry to be? How many children do you want? How many workers do you want? How many volunteers do you want? What do you want to do? What needs to happen? You got 12 weeks to get it done.
Right.
And
I can see
yeah,
how this could really help. We're also moving towards at the end of every year, we usually do ministry plans and people set their goals and their projections for the new year. Um, and that actually is internally that's the performance based kind of raises will be based upon their did they reach their goals of the previous year, what are they planning on for the next year, and so that's how we'll come up with whatever those raises look like for them. But in the next year, if we break it down, their goals that they set, break it down into this 12-week format, then it's like a bite-sized approach to are we instead of just waiting to the end of the year, are we actually reaching it and progressing towards it? I
100%.
like that.
Yeah. 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 Because let's be honest, man, if you have everybody set goals by the end of the year and they submit them to you on December 1st or whatever the day is, it would be interesting to talk to them in March with their laptops closed and go, now, what are your goals for the year? I, I can
Uh-huh.
guarantee they won't even be able to mention half of them. Uh, I've been there, done that. I'm like, shut the laptop. Tell me what your goals are. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, you're not going to hit them, but you don't even know what they are. Uh, but now, if we say, okay, I don't really care about. Okay, I'm talking like it's January. I don't even care about August. Just for the
Right.
next 90 days. What are we going to do for 90 days? That's it. Well, don't
Right.
worry about nothing else. Just tell me what we're going to do in the next 90 days. People can, I'm
Yeah.
telling you this, the 12-week year, the more I've taken that and made it my own and taught it to a lot of people, but man, that 12-week year thing, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal. You're just setting a goal and then breaking it down. It's like, it's no big deal. It's leadership
Right.
101. But that phrase 12-week year, I don't know what it is, but it makes it doable to people. It's
Right.
amazing to me how doable it makes it. Yeah.
Do you see any hang up to the possibility? Because I can see how our church, we operate seasonally. And so
Mhm.
we kind of break things down seasonally. We have larger, all the way to our smaller staff things. We operate on a seasonal calendar. Do you see any hang up with us doing a 16-week year? Like
No, I
like
wouldn't see
basically
it.
it'd be a seasonal.
Yeah, I wouldn't see it as a problem. As long as there's accountability. No, I don't see it as a
Right.
problem. As long as there's accountability, they need to understand. Like the important thing is that your direct reports understand. Here's the end
Right.
game, but what needs to happen in this chunk of time, and it's got to get specific. Okay, I want to, whatever it is. I want to say a youth pastor was like really into being on schools and working with schools. I want to work with 10 schools. Well, dude, or 5 schools. Well, you're not going to get that in the next X amount of days. But what
Right.
do you need to do to get you set up for that? Okay, I need to raise up 5 leaders. Okay, great. What does that need to look like? And then now as if you're my direct report. Okay, you want to raise up 5 leaders. Do we have job descriptions for those, Jason? No. Okay,
Right.
have that done in the next week. And then we'll go to the next. So like it's a living document that happens. So no, I don't have a problem with that. I
Okay.
think it could work either way. However, I think 16 times 4 ends up being 54 weeks. But so I'm not sure how that works out. I don't know what you got going on in Bakersfield, but the rest of the world has 52 weeks.
It works out to be like a 14, yeah. I mean a 4-month year is what it basically
Right,
would
right.
be.
I know.
That last one's
I
yeah.
got my own little calendar going on. I don't know what the rest of the world's doing.
Darn you, Chris!
Yeah. But
Gotta throw a wrench in my plans.
but the other
Okay.
one doesn't work either. 12 times 4 is 48. Leaves 4 weeks left over.
Ha! There
Yeah,
you
see,
go.
fired back. I was trying to help you. Come back at me.
I don't math.
I
I
don't.
don't
I
math.
don't math. I don't
It's
math.
it's
That's a
too
good
early for
sentence.
math. I just
It's
don't
too
I don't
early.
math, man. No, I like it. I actually like math.
Yeah.
Okay. So one more question. Do we have time for one more question?
Yeah. One more. Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay,
One more. We're good.
so this one's more of like it is leadership oriented, but it's personal as well because I want to know like what you've seen work and working with a lot of churches that you work with, Chris. Um, the co-lead role of husband and wife. How do you see that evolving and growing and as churches grow with the husband and wife lead team? Is there some good principles or practices that you've seen? As you know, Veronica and I, we lead together, and we're always trying to glean from other people that are leading together as co-leads. And we, with our unique giftings, that is. How do you
Right.
see that working? And what are some great, best practices as we're growing through it together?
Yeah, well, one of the things that you just said, I think, is really important. You said inside in our giftings. I,
Yeah.
I'll approach this from a different angle because I know several that co-lead like that, and in some good sized churches, and they're growing and all that. Where I think they make the mistake is they put an expectation on themselves. Primarily, usually it's the wife will put an expectation on themselves as that, because the title has the title lead pastor in it. They put an expectation on themselves that pushes them out of the lane, and then the frustration begins to start. And so the way I would say is, I think you guys do a great job with it, but I would encourage you, because what's going to happen is you continue to grow, demands get heavier. Then all
Yeah.
of a sudden, you might unintentionally push her into a lane. She might unintentionally feel like, oh, I need to go in that lane because, hey, I'm the lead pastor, but she's not really comfortable in that lane. And
Right.
making sure that that phrase you used, inside your giftings or in the giftings, you have to
Yeah.
stay in that lane. Where I see it kind of get a little messed up, I guess would be a way, or yeah, I guess a little messed up, is when they start drifting into other lanes, and neither one of them like it, but there's an expectation, or maybe the husband puts a little too big of a
Right.
demand. Maybe the wife is feeling like, hey, dude, this is not my thing, but she doesn't say anything. And then next thing you know, there ends up being a friction, which I've had in working with a lot of people. It's like there's a friction to their working relationship that is now bleeding into their personal life. Uh,
Right.
that to me, it is. I think you guys have a great, healthy relationship. I would just make sure that you're careful that you stay in your lanes. Um,
Yeah.
and that happens two reasons. One, because you're co-leading and you'll have a tendency not to. Secondly, why I think it's important, because the bigger you get, the less things you do.
Yeah.
I've told you that more than what. The bigger you get, the less people you pastor. The bigger you get, the less things. It's like, okay, no, you got to get more refined, more refined. So I was working with a church of, I don't know, about 10,000 or so a while back. And they got three executive pastors. And it's so interesting that that's mainly who he worked with. And that's it.
Yeah.
And how much they have to fight to stay in each other's lane, because he is just a relational guy. And I'm like, dude, you got to stay in your lane.
Yeah.
And you're going to have that battle because you're highly relational. And then you're both very gifted, you and your wife, but you're gifted in different areas. And
Yeah.
if she feels pressure, or you put on pressure, or vice versa, you put it on yourselves.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I think where you're at is healthy. It's making sure that that we're staying in each other's lanes in the way that we
Well,
should.
one of the things that we've just, we know each other's giftings and strengths. And so through navigating, over the last 10 years, I am gifted in communication, visionary leadership. And so that's a lane that we know that the church even needs. I need to
Yep.
be using that gift. I need to be casting vision.
Right.
I need to be being the visionary leader and the voice of our church. And there was a season where it was like, well, if you're the lead, you also have voice, and you need your voice. But where does your voice come in? And so we were trying to balance the tension there, and have come back to this place of no, but where she's realizing, she said, you know what, I feel like in our restructuring, and we're getting more leaders and executives, and there still needs to be a lane for your voice over the staff. And so
Yes.
trying to carve out times where intentionally my voice is leading not just the vision of the church, but the vision of the staff, and
100%. Yeah.
intentionally having my voice. So what are maybe some practical ways, Chris, that I can lean into that gift of communication and visionary leadership, and that my staff even is hearing my voice in a very practical way, where I'm not taking away from
Yeah.
my executives, but I'm able to be a visionary leader of the staff.
100%. Yep. So two things. One is back to the idea of the mentoring culture. You got to make sure that when your staff is speaking, whether that is your wife or two or three other executives on the team, that they're speaking your voice. Your voice is coming in clear. Your culture is coming in clear. Your values are coming clear. They are speaking your voice. There is no doubt they're speaking on your behalf. That has to happen. If that doesn't happen, that's when the culture starts to fade as it cascades down. I'm not saying it's not happening, but you just got to guard that very carefully, because next thing you know, it's like that's not anything I would say. That's not anything that I would do. Secondly, so you got to make sure that they are like, man, they know, embrace, defend, and multiply the culture. They live in the multiply world. Okay. Because they're the ones that are truly multiplying it. Secondly is, and this is not, I'm not telling anything you don't know, you have to have incredibly concrete, regular times that you speak into the staff and you don't miss. Whether that's monthly, I've talked about that. Like, hey, at the end of every month, you guys have a little breakfast, and then you do some vision, whatever. But they've got to be hearing from, I don't think it has to be every week, but they've got to be hearing from you about every 4 to 6 weeks of, man, we're hearing from our, the commander in chief. He's giving us culture. He's talking about what we value. He's helping us celebrate. He's casting vision. If you miss that regularity because of busyness, you risk the culture fade and you risk the vision voice. You can't let that go away. So those are the two things that I would live by. Like, these guys multiply it just like I do. This top 5 or 8, whatever, multiply it like I do. And I speak regularly, without fail, regularly to the team. Awesome. They have to hear from you on a regular basis. And it can't be that it gets busy. It's too big of a priority. Back to the mission critical. It's mission critical. It can't get bumped for anything. And it can't get bumped for almost anything because it's too mission critical that you're the vision, you're the chief of the visionary voice. So anyway. There was a season where in the transition to our mission critical and scaling our leadership that it got busy. It got like, doing this and doing that. And so we're finding rhythm again. And so I appreciate all your advice and coaching, Chris. Absolutely. Well, dude, always great talking with you, man. I sure do appreciate you, buddy. And man, I love what God's doing. And I know we're just getting started, and I'm honored to be a part of the journey. Yeah. All right, dude. I'll talk to you later. Thank you for tuning in to the Fly on the Wall podcast. We hope today's episode provided you with some practical steps to lead your church to the next level. If you found this episode helpful, take a moment to leave us a review and share it with others. Remember, when the pastor grows, the church grows, and we grow pastors. We love you. We're your raving fans, and we are cheering you on. See you next week.